Most people aren't destroyed by failure. They're destroyed by something far more dangerous. They are destroyed by the lies they tell themselves. And here's the uncomfortable truth. The smartest people often become the easiest victims of self-deception. Why? Because they're intelligent enough to justify their weaknesses. They call fear being realistic. They call procrastination careful planning. They call comfort peace. And after repeating those stories long enough, they stop sounding like excuses. They start sounding like truth. But let me ask you something. What if the greatest enemy you'll ever face isn't out there? What if it's the voice inside your own head that keeps convincing you to stay exactly where you are? Niccolò Machiavelli understood something that most people never realize. A person who can be deceived by himself doesn't need enemies. Life will defeat him for them. Because the most dangerous prison isn't built with walls. It's built with illusions. The illusion that you have more time, the illusion that you're waiting for the right opportunity, the illusion that you're being patient when you're actually terrified to move. And here's the frightening part. Most people will spend their entire lives protecting those illusions. Not because they're true, but because the truth hurts. The truth demands responsibility. The truth forces change. And most people would rather remain comfortable than become powerful. In this video, we're going to uncover 8 ruthless Machiavellian principles that expose the hidden lies people tell themselves every day. Not the obvious lies, the subtle ones, the dangerous ones, the lies that quietly steal your ambition, your confidence, your discipline, and eventually your future. This isn't motivation. This isn't self-help. This is psychological warfare against self-deception. Because the moment you stop lying to yourself is the moment you become difficult to manipulate, difficult to control, difficult to defeat. By the end of this video, you'll understand why Machiavelli believed that brutal self-honesty is one of the rarest forms of power, and why people who refuse to face reality almost always lose to those who do. So before we begin, I want you to make a decision, not tomorrow, not next week, right now. Are you willing to hear the truth about yourself, even if it makes you uncomfortable? Now let's begin. Number 1. Comfort is often a disguised lie. Let me tell you something most men never realize. The biggest threat to your future isn't failure, it's comfort. Failure hurts, comfort doesn't. That's why comfort is so much more dangerous. Every day, men wake up and tell themselves the same story. I'm waiting for the right moment, the right opportunity, the right connection, the right amount of money, the right level of confidence. Sounds intelligent, doesn't it? But let's strip away the disguise. What they're really saying is, I'm afraid. Afraid of rejection. Afraid of looking foolish. Afraid of discovering their limits. So they wait, and done. Until one day they realize they've spent years standing still while convincing themselves they were being strategic. Think about the man who says he's going to start his business next year. 5 years later, he's still talking about it. The man who says he'll get in shape when life becomes less busy. Life never becomes less busy. The man who keeps watching videos about success instead of creating it. He mistakes consumption for progress. And the cruel part, he genuinely believes he's moving forward. That's the genius of comfort. It doesn't feel like a prison. It feels like safety. Machiavelli understood something most people miss. Power rarely belongs to the man who knows the most. Power belongs to the man who acts while everyone else is still thinking. Action creates leverage, delay creates weakness, and comfort is the silent force feeding that weakness every single day. It whispers in your ear, relax. You deserve a break. Tomorrow will be better. You're not ready yet. It sounds caring, almost protective. But comfort is not your friend. Comfort is the voice that keeps average men average. Because while you're sitting in certainty, someone else is taking the risk. While you're preparing, someone else is executing while you're waiting for permission. Someone else is executing while you're waiting for permission. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Most men don't need more knowledge, they need less comfort. Because deep down, you already know what needs to be done. You know the conversation you're avoiding. You know the habit that's destroying your discipline. You know the opportunity you've been postponing. You know. That's what makes this painful. The problem isn't ignorance. The problem is avoidance, and avoidance has a hidden cost. Every time you choose comfort over action, you send yourself a message, a dangerous message. You tell yourself, I don't trust myself. Do that long enough and confidence disappears. Not because you failed, because you never moved. Because confidence isn't built by thinking, it's built by proving to yourself that you'll act despite uncertainty. So ask yourself something brutally honest. What are you currently calling patience that's actually fear? What are you calling strategy that's actually hesitation? What are you calling strategy that's actually hesitation? What are you calling preparation that's actually procrastination? Because the moment you answer those questions honestly, the illusion starts to crack. And when the illusion breaks, something powerful happens. You stop negotiating with your excuses. You stop worshiping comfort. You stop waiting for a future version of yourself to save you. And you finally do what powerful men have always done. You move. Before you're ready, before you're certain, before you feel comfortable. Because comfort never made a man dangerous, action did. Number 2. Self-deception is the first form of weakness. Let me tell you something most men will spend their entire lives trying to avoid. The most dangerous liar you'll ever meet isn't a politician, a manipulator, or an enemy, it's you. Because when another man lies to you, there's still a chance you'll catch it. But when you lie to yourself, you become both the prisoner and the prison guard. And that's where real weakness begins. Not when you fail, not when you lose, but when you stop telling yourself the truth. Watch carefully, and you'll see it everywhere. A man says he's not approaching women because he's focused on himself. Maybe, or maybe he's terrified of rejection. A man says he's staying in a dead-end job because it's the responsible choice. Maybe, or maybe he's scared to find out what happens when there's no safety net. A man says he's not overweight, he's just busy, not undisciplined, just busy. Interesting how the ego always finds a noble explanation for an uncomfortable truth. That's what self-deception does. It doesn't look like lying. It looks like reasoning. It sounds intelligent. It sounds mature. It sounds logical. That's why it's so deadly. Machiavelli understood something most men never will. People rarely lose because of external enemies. They lose because they miscalculate themselves. History is filled with powerful men who believed their own story. Kings who thought they were untouchable, leaders who thought they were loved, commanders who thought they couldn't lose. And every single one of them discovered the same brutal lesson. Reality doesn't care what you believe. Reality only cares what's true. That's why self-deception is so expensive. Every lie creates a blind spot, and blind spots are where power leaks out. The man who refuses to admit he's needy becomes controlled by validation. The man who refuses to admit he's insecure becomes controlled by status. The man who refuses to admit he's afraid becomes controlled by fear itself. You see the pattern. What you refuse to face eventually controls you. That's the hidden law, the law nobody talks about, the thing buried underneath confidence, leadership, attraction, influence, and power. Awareness, brutal awareness. Because you cannot control what you refuse to acknowledge. I've seen men spend years building an image instead of building themselves. Perfect photos, perfect captions, perfect stories. Meanwhile, their discipline is collapsing behind closed doors. Their finances are a mess. Their confidence is hanging by a thread. But they keep performing, keep pretending, keep protecting an identity that only exists in their own imagination. And the tragedy is they start believing it. That's when the danger begins. Because once you start believing your own illusion, reality becomes your enemy, and reality always wins, every single time. So here's a question most men are afraid to ask themselves. Who are you when nobody is watching? Not your profile, not your reputation, and not the version of yourself you present to the world. The real version, the one behind the excuses, the one behind the image, the one behind the mask, because that's the man you're actually negotiating with every day. And until you see him clearly, you'll never become dangerous. You'll remain predictable, manipulable, controllable. The moment you stop lying to yourself, something changes. Your vision sharpens, your excuses lose their power, your weaknesses become visible, and for the first time, you can actually do something about them. That's where power begins, not in confidence, not in motivation, not in positive thinking, but in truth. Cold, uncomfortable, unfiltered truth. Number 3, excuses are stories for the weak mind. Let me ask you a question. How many excuses have you told yourself this week? Not other people, yourself. How many times did you explain your way out of action? How many times did you build a perfectly logical story for why you didn't do what you knew needed to be done? Because that's the thing about excuses. The best excuses don't sound like excuses. They sound intelligent, they sound reasonable, they sound true. That's why they're so dangerous. A weak man says, "I couldn't." A smarter weak man says, "The timing wasn't right." Same excuse, better packaging. Machiavelli understood a brutal truth about human nature. Most people don't want solutions. They want absolution. They don't want responsibility. They want a story that allows them to escape it. Because responsibility is heavy. Responsibility means looking at your life and realizing that nobody is coming to rescue you. No mentor, no woman, no government, no lucky break, just you. And for many men, that's terrifying. So they retreat into narratives. I didn't have enough time. I wasn't given the same opportunities. I didn't have the right connections. Maybe all of that is true. But here's the uncomfortable part nobody wants to discuss. Reality doesn't reward explanations, it rewards results. The world doesn't care why you didn't become stronger, it only sees whether you did. It doesn't care why you didn't build the business, it only sees whether you built it. It doesn't care why you lost control of your life. It only sees whether you took control back. That's the game, and most men spend years arguing with the scoreboard instead of changing it. I once knew a man who spent 5 years talking about starting a business, 5 years. Every conversation sounded the same. He had a new plan, a new strategy, a new reason why now wasn't the right time. Meanwhile, another man with less knowledge, less experience, and less confidence started immediately. Guess which one succeeded? The man with the worst plan, because action beats explanation every single time. What most people call bad luck is often delayed action. What they call unfair circumstances is often prolonged hesitation. What they call impossible is often something they stopped trying to solve. And here's where it gets darker. Excuses don't just protect your ego, they slowly destroy your identity. Because every excuse sends your mind a message, a dangerous message. It says, "I'm not responsible." And when your brain hears that enough times, it stops looking for solutions and starts looking for someone to blame. The economy, your parents, women, society, your boss, your past, anybody except the man in the mirror. And the moment that happens, you've surrendered your power. Because blame feels powerful for a moment, but responsibility creates power for a lifetime. That's the difference. One is emotional relief, the other is control. Machiavelli would have laughed at most modern excuses, not because obstacles aren't real, they are, but because powerful men ask a different question. Not why is this happening to me, but what can I do about it? That's the mindset shift that separates leaders from followers, victims from creators, men who stay stuck from men who become dangerous. So the next time you're about to say, "I didn't have time," say, "I didn't make it a priority." Instead of, "I wasn't ready," say, "I was afraid." Instead of, "I couldn't," say, "I chose not to." Notice how much heavier that feels. That's because truth carries weight, but weight builds strength. Excuses carry comfort, and comfort builds weakness. So stop defending your limitations. Stop negotiating with reality. Stop explaining your life away. Own it. Every decision, every mistake, every delay, every outcome. Because the moment you take ownership, you take back power, and power begins where excuses end. Number 4, if you can't face reality, you can't control it. Let me tell you one of the most uncomfortable truths you'll ever hear. Most men don't suffer because reality is against them. They suffer because reality keeps trying to show them something they're unwilling to see. That's the real problem. Not reality itself, resistance to it. Because human beings have a strange habit, we don't see the world as it is, we see it as we wish it were. We see it through hope, through desire, through fear, and those filters are expensive. A man wants to believe she still loves him, so he ignores the disrespect, ignores the distance, ignores the coldness in her voice. He clings to old memories while reality quietly leaves the room. A businessman wants to believe his strategy is working, so he keeps investing time, money, and energy into something that's already dead. Not because it's profitable, because admitting failure would wound his pride. A man wants to believe people respect him, so he mistakes politeness for admiration, tolerance for respect, attention for loyalty. And one day reality arrives without warning, brutal, unapologetic, final. The relationship ends, the business collapses, the people disappear, and suddenly he's shocked. But the signs were always there. He just didn't want to see them. That's how self-deception works. It doesn't blind you completely, it simply convinces you to look away. Machiavelli understood something most people never will. Power belongs to the man who sees what others refuse to see. Not what feels good, not what sounds inspiring, what's real. Because reality is the only battlefield that matters. And here's where it gets dangerous. Most men spend years negotiating with reality instead of adapting to it. They argue with facts, argue with outcomes, argue with consequences, as if reality cares about their opinion. It doesn't. Reality doesn't negotiate. Reality doesn't compromise. Reality doesn't reward effort. Reality rewards accuracy. Read that again. Reality rewards accuracy. The man who sees clearly has an advantage over the man who merely hopes. Every single time. That's why clarity is one of the most ruthless forms of power. And clarity isn't pleasant. It's painful. Sometimes clarity tells you that you're not behind because of bad luck. You're behind because you've been undisciplined. Sometimes clarity tells you that the opportunity didn't disappear, you hesitated. Sometimes clarity tells you that nobody is secretly holding you back, you've been holding yourself back. That hurts. The ego hates those conversations. The ego wants comforting lies. The ego wants a villain, a scapegoat, a conspiracy, anyone except the man staring back in the mirror. But powerful men operate differently. They would rather be wounded by truth than protected by illusion, because they understand something that weak men never learn. Every illusion eventually charges interest. The longer you avoid reality, the more expensive reality becomes. Ignore your finances, the debt grows. Ignore your health, the damage grows. Ignore your weaknesses, the consequences grow. Reality is patient, but it always collects. So let me ask you a question. Not the version of you that performs for other people, the real version. What truth have you been avoiding? What pattern keeps repeating in your life that you're pretending not to see? What outcome are you blaming on circumstances that is actually the result of your own decisions? Be honest. Because the moment you stop lying about reality, you stop being controlled by it. That's the paradox. Most men think power comes from dominating the world. Machiavelli knew better. Power begins with seeing the world clearly, coldly, precisely, without illusion, without hope distorting the facts, without emotion rewriting the evidence. Because the man who sees reality first is usually the man who controls what happens next, and that is where real power begins, not in confidence. Not in optimism, in awareness. Number 5. Your emotions are not truth. This is where most men lose control of their lives without ever realizing it. Not because they're weak, not because they're unintelligent, but because they confuse what they feel with what's real. And those are not the same thing. In fact, some of the worst decisions you'll ever make will feel absolutely right in the moment. That's what makes emotions so dangerous. They don't arrive looking like enemies. They arrive disguised as certainty. You feel angry. Suddenly, destroying a relationship feels justified. You feel rejected. Suddenly, giving up feels logical. You feel lonely. Suddenly, chasing validation feels necessary. You feel confident. Suddenly, risk feels smaller than it actually is. The emotion changes, the illusion changes, but the trap remains the same. You start obeying feelings instead of evaluating reality, and once that happens, you're no longer in control, your emotions are. Machiavelli understood something most men never fully grasp. The easiest man to manipulate is not the weak man, it's the emotional man. The man who can be provoked, the man who can be flattered, the man who can be baited, the man who reacts before he thinks. Because once someone controls your emotions, they control your decisions, and once they control your decisions, and look around, how many men have destroyed years of progress because of one emotional moment? One angry message, one impulsive decision, one desperate attempt to keep someone who was already leaving, one emotional purchase, one emotional argument, one emotional reaction. Minutes of emotion, years of consequences. That's the hidden cost nobody talks about. Emotion is expensive, especially when it masquerades as truth. I once heard a man say, "I trusted my heart." What he really meant was, I ignored the evidence. The red flags were there, the disrespect was there, the inconsistency was there, but he chose the feeling over the facts, and reality punished him for it. Because reality does not reward sincerity, reality rewards accuracy. That's a lesson most men learn too late. Your feelings are real, but they are not reliable. There's a difference. Fear feels real, that doesn't mean danger exists. Confidence feels real, that doesn't mean you're prepared. Attraction feels real, that doesn't mean loyalty exists. Anger feels real, that doesn't mean you're right. And this is where powerful men separate themselves from everyone else. They don't become emotionless, that's a misunderstanding. They become emotionally disciplined. They feel everything, but they obey almost nothing. Think about that. Most men are servants to whatever emotion shows up that day. A bad mood controls their productivity. A compliment controls their confidence. A rejection controls their self-worth. A woman's attention controls their direction. They're not living strategically, they're living reactively. And reactive men are predictable. Predictable men are controllable. And controllable men never hold power for long. The dangerous man is different. He experiences the storm without becoming the storm. He feels anger without surrendering to it. He feels fear without obeying it. He feels desire without becoming addicted to it. He observes his emotions the same way a king observes his kingdom, calmly, from above, without panic, without attachment. Because he understands a secret most people never discover: emotions are messengers, not commanders. Fear may tell you there's risk. Anger may tell you a boundary was crossed. Excitement may reveal opportunity. Listen to the message, but never surrender the throne. Before every important decision, ask yourself, am I responding to reality, or am I responding to a feeling? Because one leads to power, the other leads to regret. And Machiavelli respected only one type of man, not the man who feels right, but the man who remains right even when every emotion inside him is demanding otherwise. That's the man who becomes impossible to manipulate. That's the man who becomes dangerous. Number 6. People respect those who are honest with themselves. Here's a secret most men never hear. Respect is not earned the way you've been taught. It's not earned by talking louder. It's not earned by flexing success. It's not earned by trying to look powerful. In fact, the harder a man tries to appear powerful, the more suspicious people become. Because people are far more perceptive than they seem. They notice things, not consciously, but instinctively. They notice hesitation. They notice insecurity. And they notice when a man's words and actions don't match. And once they detect that gap, something changes. The respect disappears. Because weakness has a scent, and self-deception is one of the strongest scents a man can carry. You've seen it before. The man constantly talking about how successful he is. The man constantly reminding everyone how confident he is. The man constantly broadcasting his value. What is he really doing? Selling, and people only sell what they fear nobody is buying. A truly dangerous man rarely needs to announce himself. His presence does the work. Not because he's pretending, but because he's aligned. Machiavelli understood something most people miss. Human beings are constantly scanning for congruence. They're asking one silent question. Is this man who he says he is? Not with words, with instinct. And instinct is difficult to fool. You can fool people for a conversation. You can fool them for a meeting, sometimes even for years. But eventually reality leaks through. It always does. The insecurity appears, the neediness appears, the craving for validation appears, because self-deception creates internal conflict, and internal conflict always becomes visible. A man says he doesn't care what people think, yet one negative comment ruins his entire day. A man says he's focused on his purpose, yet he abandons it the moment approval disappears. A man says he's confident, yet he's constantly seeking reassurance from others. See the contradiction. People feel those contradictions. Maybe they can't explain them, but they feel them. And when they do, trust begins to evaporate. Now here's where it gets interesting. The opposite is also true. When a man becomes brutally honest with himself, something shifts in the room, something difficult to explain. He stops performing, stops chasing approval, stops trying to manufacture an image, and suddenly his presence becomes heavier, stronger, more grounded. Not because he became perfect, because he became real. And reality has weight. Think about the men you've respected most in your life, not admired from a distance, but actually respected. Was it the loudest man? The most charismatic? The most entertaining? Usually not. More often, it was the man who seemed completely comfortable with who he was. The man who didn't need to impress anyone. The man who could admit a mistake without collapsing. The man who didn't panic when challenged. And the man who wasn't desperately negotiating for approval. That's what people respond to. Not perfection, certainty. Not arrogance, alignment. And alignment creates a form of power most men never achieve. Silent authority. The kind of authority that doesn't need permission. The kind that doesn't need validation. The kind that doesn't depend on status, money, or titles. Because it's built on something much rarer. Truth. The truth about who you are. The truth about your strengths. The truth about your weaknesses. And the truth about your motives. Most men spend years constructing an image. Powerful men spend years eliminating masks. That's the difference. One is trying to look strong, the other is becoming strong. And people can feel the distinction immediately. So stop asking how to make people respect you. That's the wrong question. Ask yourself something far more uncomfortable. Where am I still pretending? Where am I still performing? Where am I still lying to myself? Because the moment those lies disappear, something remarkable happens. You stop chasing respect, and respect starts chasing you. That's the power of alignment, and aligned men are rare, which is exactly why they're impossible to ignore. Number 7. Lying to yourself keeps you controllable. Most men think control comes from money. Some think it comes from status. Others think it comes from power, influence, or physical strength. They're wrong. The easiest man to control is not the poorest man. It's the man who doesn't understand himself. Because if you don't know what drives you, someone else will figure it out, and once they do, the game is over before it even starts. Machiavelli understood this better than almost anyone. He knew that people are rarely controlled through force. They're controlled through their blind spots, through desires they refuse to admit, through fears they refuse to admit, through fears they refuse to confront, through insecurities they desperately try to hide. That's where real manipulation happens. Not on the surface, but underneath, in the places you avoid looking. Think about the man who secretly craves validation, but tells himself he doesn't care what people think. He's easy to control. Praise him, and he'll follow. Ignore him, and he'll chase. Criticize him, and he'll lose his composure. His strings are visible to everyone except him. Or the man who says he's independent, but secretly fears being alone. Watch what happens. He tolerates disrespect, accepts situations he should walk away from, and compromises his standards. Not because he's weak, but because he's terrified of abandonment. Again, someone else is holding the leash. Then there's the man obsessed with appearing successful. The moment his status is questioned, he becomes emotional, defensive, predictable. And predictability is a gift to manipulators, because once people know what triggers you, they know how to move you like a chess piece, without you ever realizing it. That's why self-deception is so dangerous. It doesn't just make you blind, it makes you programmable. You become vulnerable to anyone willing to exploit what you've refused to acknowledge. And here's the disturbing part: most manipulation doesn't come from enemies. It comes from people who simply understand human nature better than you do. A salesman, a charismatic leader, a woman who understands attention, a boss who understands ambition, a friend who understands guilt. They don't force you, they pull the right emotional lever, and you move yourself. That's how sophisticated control works. The puppet thinks he's making his own decisions. Machiavelli saw this pattern everywhere. Kings destroyed by ego, generals destroyed by pride, powerful men destroyed by desires they couldn't master, not because they lacked intelligence, but because they lacked self-awareness. They knew how to read others, but they never learned how to read themselves. And that's where their downfall began. Now here's the paradox: the moment you admit your weaknesses, they lose much of their power. The moment you say, "Yes, I crave validation. Yes, rejection affects me. Yes, my ego gets involved," something changes. The shadow becomes visible, and what becomes visible becomes manageable. You cannot be blackmailed by a truth you've already accepted. You cannot be manipulated by a weakness you've already confronted. You cannot be controlled by a fear you've already named. That's why self-awareness is one of the highest forms of power. Not because it makes you perfect, but because it makes you difficult to play. The dangerous man isn't the man without weaknesses. He is the man who knows exactly where his weaknesses are. He knows his triggers, his temptations, his emotional vulnerabilities, his hunger for approval, his need for significance. And because he knows them, he watches them like a king watching the gates of his kingdom. Nothing enters unnoticed, nothing takes control without permission. That's what awareness really is: armor. Not armor against the world, but armor against manipulation, against emotional exploitation, against becoming someone else's pawn. So stop running from the parts of yourself you don't like. Stop hiding from them. Stop pretending they're not there. Face them, name them, study them. Because the moment you do, they stop being chains and they become weapons. And a man who truly knows himself becomes very difficult to control. Number 8, truth is painful, but power is built on pain. Let's end with the truth most men spend their entire lives running from. Pain is not the enemy, comfort is. The enemy is not rejection, it's avoidance. The enemy is not failure, it's self-deception. The enemy is not hearing the truth, it's spending years hiding from it. Because whether you realize it or not, life always collects payment, always. The only question is when. You can pay now with discipline, or pay later with regret. You can pay now with honesty, or pay later with consequences. You can pay now with a wounded ego, or pay later with a wasted life. Most men choose later, and that's why most men wake up one day feeling haunted. Not by what happened, by what never happened. The business they never started, the opportunities they never took, the standards they never enforced, the version of themselves they never became. And the worst part, they know exactly where it began, not with a major failure, but with a small lie. A lie repeated so many times it became an identity. I'm not ready. I'll start next year. It's not that bad. I still have time. No. You had excuses, and excuses have an expiration date. Reality doesn't. Machiavelli understood something brutal about power. The strongest men are not those who avoid pain. They're the men who choose the right pain. Think about that. Every man suffers. The disciplined man suffers training. The undisciplined man suffers weakness. The honest man suffers weakness. The honest man suffers illusion. The man who takes responsibility suffers growth. The man who avoids responsibility suffers stagnation. Pain is unavoidable. The question is whether your pain is building you or burying you, because one form of pain leaves scars, the other leaves regret. And regret is far heavier. I've seen men spend 10 years protecting their ego, 10 years explaining why they weren't where they wanted to be, 10 years blaming circumstances, blaming timing, blaming other people, blaming everything except themselves. Then one day reality arrives, quietly, no warning, no drama, just a mirror, and suddenly they see it. The years are gone, the opportunities are gone, the excuses are still there, but now nobody believes them, not even themselves. That's the terrifying thing about truth. You can delay it, but you can never escape it. Eventually, every man is forced to meet reality face to face. The question is whether you meet it voluntarily or whether life drags you there. Because reality is patient, it waits. While you procrastinate, while you rationalize, while you negotiate with your weaknesses, it waits. And when it finally arrives, it brings the bill. This is why truth is power. Not because truth feels good, it usually doesn't. Truth is power. Not because truth feels good, it usually doesn't. Truth is power because it gives you something illusion never can, a chance. A chance to adjust, a chance to adapt, a chance to correct your course before it's too late. The lie comforts you. The truth transforms you. The lie protects your ego. The truth protects your future. The lie tells you you're fine. The truth tells you where to improve. And improvement is where power begins. So stop asking whether the truth hurts. Of course it hurts. It's supposed to. Truth is a blade. It cuts away fantasy, cuts away excuses, cuts away weakness, cuts away every false version of yourself you've been hiding behind. And when the cutting is finished, something remains, the real you. Not the image, not the performance, not the mask. The man underneath. The man capable of building something real, the man capable of commanding respect, the man capable of controlling his life instead of reacting to it. That man is not born from comfort. He is forged by truth. So if you want power, choose truth. If you want freedom, choose truth. If you want control, choose truth. Even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts. Because the moment you stop lying to yourself is the moment you stop being weak in silence, and the moment you become dangerous in reality. Machiavelli never promised comfort. He never promised fairness. He never promised that good intentions would be rewarded. And that's exactly why his ideas have survived for centuries while most modern advice dies within a few years. Because Machiavelli wasn't interested in fantasy, he was interested in reality. Cold reality. The reality most people spend their entire lives trying to escape. Look around. Most men are not defeated by a lack of talent. They're not defeated by bad luck. They're not defeated by their circumstances. They're defeated by the stories they tell themselves, the stories that protect the ego while quietly destroying the future. The man who says he's waiting for the right opportunity, the man who says he's not ready yet, the man who says he'll change someday. Someday, the most expensive word in the human language, because someday has buried more dreams than failure ever could. And maybe that's what has made this video uncomfortable. Maybe as you've been listening, you've recognized pieces of yourself. Not the version you show the world, the version you hide from it. The excuses, the fears, the procrastination, the need for validation, the emotional reactions, the blind spots, and the uncomfortable truths you've been trying to negotiate with. Because deep down, most men already know where they're lying to themselves. They know. They've always known. The problem was never awareness. The problem was courage. The courage to stop pretending. The courage to stop blaming. The courage to stop waiting. The courage to look directly at reality without demanding that it be kinder than it is. That's what separates powerful men from everyone else. Not intelligence, not charisma, not genetics, not luck. Truth. Relentless truth. The winners aren't the men who never feel fear. They're the men who admit fear exists and move anyway. The winners aren't the men without weaknesses. They're the men who know exactly where their weaknesses are. The winners aren't the men with perfect circumstances. They're the men who stop using circumstances as an excuse. That's the difference. Small on the surface, massive in its consequences. Because every powerful man eventually reaches the same crossroads. One road offers comfort, the other offers truth. Comfort feels better. Truth works better. Comfort protects the ego. Truth builds the man. Comfort gives relief. Truth gives freedom. And most people spend their lives choosing relief. That's why so few ever become dangerous. So before you leave this video, I want you to ask yourself one final question. Not tomorrow, not next week, but right now. What is the biggest lie you're currently telling yourself? Not the lie you tell other people, the lie you repeat in private. The excuse you keep recycling, the truth you keep avoiding. Because that lie is costing you more than you think. More time, more opportunities, more respect, more potential, maybe even the life you were capable of building. And here's the brutal reality. You don't conquer your life the day you make more money. You don't conquer your life the day people respect you. You don't conquer your life the day you become successful. You conquer your life the day you stop lying to yourself. That's where it starts. That's where power starts. That's where power starts. That's where freedom starts. That's where control starts. Everything else comes after. If this video forced you to confront something you've been avoiding, make sure you leave a like, share it with a man who needs to hear it, and subscribe to the channel. Because we're going deeper than motivation here. We're talking about reality. The kind of reality most people spend their lives running from. And if you're willing to face it, then you're exactly where you need to be. Until the next video, stay sharp, stay aware, and above all, never lie to yourself.